Hello, Canada. I'm John Cundle, and welcome to this episode of Canada's Wake Up Call. Just hours ago, President Trump sent a letter to Prime Minister Carney that reads like something from a protection racket, not a diplomatic communication between allied nations. We're 10 days away from the July 21st deadline that was supposed to save our relationship with the United States. Instead, we've received a threat that makes it clear this was never about negotiation. We're going to dissect this letter, examine the catastrophic failure of our digital services tax surrender, and ask the question every Canadian is thinking: what the hell do we do now? Part 1: The letter that changes everything. Let me read you some key excerpts from Trump's letter because you need to hear this for yourself. Starting August 1st, 2025, we will charge Canada a tariff of 35% on Canadian products sent into the United States, separate from all sectoral tariffs. 35% on everything we export. That's not negotiation, that's economic warfare, but it gets worse. Trump writes, if for any reason you decide to raise your tariffs, then whatever the number you choose to raise them by will be added on to the 35% that we charge. This isn't just a tariff threat. This is a systematic dismantling of our sovereignty designed to make any retaliation impossible. And then there's this stunning revelation. Also, I must mention that the flow of fentanyl is hardly the only challenge we have with Canada, which has many tariff and non-tariff policies and trade barriers, which cause unsustainable trade deficits against the United States. So the fentanyl crisis, which Trump has used to justify tariffs despite the fact that 99% of U.S. fentanyl seizures come from Mexico, not Canada, was just the pretext. The real target was always our entire trade relationship. Part 2: The Digital Services Tax Debacle. To understand how we got here, we need to go back to June 30th, when Canada made what may be the most catastrophic foreign policy blunder in our history. Here are the facts. On June 29th, with the digital services tax due to take effect the next day, Canada announced it would rescind the entire program. This was a 3% tax on tech giants like Google, Amazon, and Meta, companies that generate billions in revenue from Canadian users while paying minimal taxes here. What we gave up, $2 billion in immediate revenue, plus billions more in future years. We surrendered a policy tool that other countries like France, the UK, and Italy have successfully implemented. What we got in return? Absolutely nothing. Trade talks resumed for exactly 11 days before Trump sent this ultimatum. The DST was supposed to be our bargaining chip. Instead, it became proof that Canada would surrender anything under pressure. Trump learned that lesson well. Part 3: The Fentanyl Lie. Let's address the elephant in the room. Trump's justification for these tariffs is fundamentally dishonest. The data is crystal clear. Between 2022 and 2024, the U.S. seized just 59 pounds of fentanyl at the Canadian border, compared to 61,900 pounds at the Mexican border. That's less than 0.1% of total U.S. fentanyl seizures. A recent Manhattan Institute study found that 99% of fentanyl pills and 97% of fentanyl powder seized at U.S. land borders came from Mexico. The Canadian border accounted for less than 2.5% of large seizures. But here's what's truly telling. Trump's letter admits that fentanyl is hardly the only challenge with Canada. The drug crisis was never the real issue. It was always about trade. If fentanyl is the issue Trump claims it is, where is the evidence that Trump is spending time and money to combat the scourge within the boundaries of his own country? Although it is a topic for another day, it is very much related to fentanyl. What is Canada demanding of Trump regarding the flow of guns from the USA into Canada? Part 4: The Economic Reality. Let's talk about what these tariffs actually mean for both countries, because the numbers tell a story Trump doesn't want you to hear. Canada is the United States' largest export market, purchasing $349 billion worth of American goods in 2024. We're also their third largest source of imports at $413 billion. The US actually runs a trade surplus with Canada when you exclude energy. But here's the crucial point. Canada's exports to the US have already been declining due to existing tariffs. Our share of exports to the US dropped from 75.9% in 2024 to just 68.3% in May 2025, one of the lowest proportions on record. Meanwhile, our exports to other countries reached record highs, growing 5.7% in May alone. We're already diversifying, but it's not happening fast enough to offset the damage. Part 5, the Carney government's impossible position. Prime Minister Carney came to power on the elbows up slogan, promising to stand firm against Trump's bullying. He won election in April by channeling Canadian anger at Trump's annexation threats and trade war. But governing is different from campaigning. The DST surrender showed that when push comes to shove, Canada still folds under pressure. Now Carney faces an impossible choice. Option 1. Accept the 35% tariffs and whatever additional demands Trump makes. This would devastate our economy but might prevent further escalation. Option 2. Retaliate with our own tariffs, knowing that Trump will simply add them to his 35% baseline, creating a death spiral of escalating trade barriers. Option 3. Walk away from the relationship entirely and bet everything on trade diversification that may take years to develop. None of these options are good. All of them carry enormous risks for Canadian workers and businesses. Part 6. The broader pattern. This isn't just about trade, it's about the systematic destruction of the post-war international order. Trump's letter to Carney uses the language of conquest, not diplomacy. When he writes that companies can avoid tariffs by moving production to the US, he's not offering a trade deal, he's demanding industrial surrender. When he promises approvals quickly, professionally, and routinely, he's treating Canada like a subsidiary, not a sovereign nation. The pattern is clear. Trump uses economic coercion to force political submission. He's done it with Mexico, he's doing it with Canada, and he'll do it with any country that doesn't bend to his will. Part 7. What this means for Canada. Let's be brutally honest about where we stand. Canada is about to face the most serious economic crisis since the Great Depression. A 35% tariff on all exports would eliminate hundreds of thousands of jobs, particularly in manufacturing, agriculture, and natural resources, force businesses to choose between massive losses or relocating to the US, create supply chain disruptions that would affect every Canadian, potentially trigger a recession that could last years. But the economic damage is only part of the story. This is also about our national dignity and sovereignty. Every time we surrender to Trump's demands, we encourage the next escalation. Part 8. The Path Forward. So what do we do? Here's what I believe Canada needs to do, and it won't be easy. First, we need to acknowledge reality. The old Canada-US relationship is dead. Trump has made it clear that he views Canada as a vassal state, not a partner. We need to stop pretending otherwise. Second, we need to prepare for economic warfare. This means emergency support for affected industries, accelerated trade diversification, and possibly rationing of essential goods if supply chains collapse. Third, we need to build a coalition. The European Union, the United Kingdom, Japan, and other allies are watching this closely. They know that if Trump succeeds in breaking Canada, they're next. Fourth, we need to invoke every legal mechanism available. The WTO, USMCA dispute resolution, and international arbitration. Trump may ignore these rulings, but they'll provide legal cover for our response. Finally, we need to be prepared for a long fight. This isn't going to be resolved in weeks or months. We're looking at years of economic and political warfare. Part 9. The deeper questions. But beyond the immediate crisis, we need to ask ourselves some fundamental questions. How did we become so dependent on a country that views us with contempt? For decades, We've structured our economy around the assumption that the U.S. would always be a reliable partner. That assumption is now obviously false. Why do we keep negotiating with someone who views negotiations as weakness? Every concession we make, from the DST to previous trade deals, has been met with new demands. When will we learn that Trump only respects strength? What kind of country do we want to be? Are we willing to be an American satellite state if it means economic stability? Or are we prepared to pay the price of independence? These aren't easy questions, but they're ones we can't avoid anymore. Part 10. The International Dimension. This crisis isn't happening in isolation. Around the world, democracies are watching to see if economic coercion can break the will of sovereign nations. If Trump succeeds in forcing Canada's submission, it will embolden authoritarians everywhere. China is watching, Russia is watching, every country that wants to use economic pressure to achieve political goals is taking notes. The precedent we set here will echo around the world for decades. That's why this isn't just about Canada. It's about whether the international system will be based on mutual respect and shared rules, or on the raw exercise of power by the strongest. Canada, this is our wake-up call, not the gentle nudge we've been giving ourselves for months, but the harsh alarm that forces us to confront reality. The digital services tax surrender was a catastrophic mistake that taught Trump he could push us around with impunity. The fentanyl justification is a lie designed to provide cover for economic warfare. The July 21st deadline was never about reaching a deal. It was about setting up this ultimatum. We are 10 days away from economic devastation, and we got here because we kept believing that reason, compromise, and good faith would prevail. They won't. Trump has shown us exactly who he is and what he wants: our complete submission. The question now is, what are we prepared to do about it? Current position: Canada faces a 35% tariff on all exports starting August 1st, with automatic escalation for any retaliation. Our economy is about to be devastated. Our sovereignty is under direct attack, and our traditional relationship with the United States is effectively over. Available options: 1. Complete capitulation, accept all demands, and hope for mercy. 2. Measured retaliation, impose counter tariffs and accept escalation. 3. Economic independence, accelerate trade diversification and prepare for a long siege. 4. International coalition, build a multilateral response with allies. 5. Legal challenge, use international law to challenge Trump's actions. None of these options are good. All of them carry enormous risks. But doing nothing is not an option. The choice is ours, Canada. We can remain on our knees and hope for better treatment, or we can stand up and pay the price of dignity. The clock is ticking. We have 10 days to decide who we are as a nation. Thank you for listening. I'm John Cundle, and this has been Canada's Wake Up Call.